Very good. Good evening. My name is Jason Pro, Chairman, and I call to order this July 19th, 2021 meeting of the Northborough Board of Selectmen. This open meeting of the Northborough Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of June 16th, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Board of Selectmen are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Board of Selectmen to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow with the deliberations of the meeting. Public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meetings button on the town website, which will bring you to YouTube and have access to the link. That information is posted at the top of our agenda. And notes the ways you can view this meeting either through that YouTube live stream, Zoom webinar, audio, Zoom connection, or Northborough Cable Access Television Government Channels, Verizon Channel 30 and Charter Channel 192. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public participation. Allow me now to confirm the connectivity of all the participants who are going to be on for the entire meeting. Members, when I call your name, please unmute and reply in the affirmative. I'm Jason Pro, Chairman, Northborough Board of Selectmen. Leslie Rattan, Vice Chair.
Present.
Scott Rogers, Clerk.
Present.
Julianne Hirsch, Member.
Present.
And Kristen Wickstead, Member.
Present.
And now I'd like to just check with our staff members who will be on throughout the meeting. Assistant Town Administrator, Becca Meekins.
Present.
Police Chief William Liver. I didn't hear you, Chief. You're muted.
Now, try. No.
Nothing?
There you are.
There it is.
Oh,
yes. Okay. Public Works Director Scott Charpentier.
Present.
And Fire Chief and Zoom host for this evening, David Parenti.
Present.
Thank you all. I think I've got everyone there. We're also assisted by the services of Northborough Cable Access Television. Just to let people know, we had a delay in receiving our draft motions for this evening. Those were texted to me just a few moments ago. The approach we'll take this evening for offering motions, I'll read the text of the motion and invite a motion from another board member to that effect. And then we'll just proceed that way. So to begin our agenda, I'm sorry, I did want to mention, I have another page to get through here for our preliminary script. Ground rules for the meeting. The chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others, please ask to do so through the chair. And each vote taken by the board or committee will be conducted by roll call. For public comment, the means of doing so will be to either connect through the Zoom webinar and raise your hand, or if you are connected by phone through the Zoom application, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. We'll ask you to please identify yourself by name and address prior to speaking, and we'll proceed after that. And I think that takes care of the preliminaries. Can now begin the agenda. First item of business is approval of the June 28th, 2021 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the June 28th, 2021 meeting minutes as submitted?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes of June 28, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Leslie Rattan, seconded by Scott Rogers. Any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Leslie Rattan.
Aye.
Scott Rogers.
Aye.
Julianne Hirsch.
I had my power outage, so I'll have to abstain. I was
Yes, very good. Thank you, Julianne. And Kristen Wickstead.
Aye.
And I, Jason Perot, vote aye, so that carries 4 in favor with 1 abstention. The next item on the agenda, Chief, could you bring in the applicants?
Mr. Chair, not sure I know which ones they are. I have a Richard Rafferty.
I believe that's him, Chief.
Okay.
Yep. And past the hour of 7 p.m., we have a public hearing to consider an application to transfer the all alcoholic beverages restaurant license from RJ and JJ Holdings Incorporated to Saranda Incorporated, doing business as the Steak Loft Restaurant for premises located at 369 West Main Street. Mr. Rafferty?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good, because I can't see myself on the screen, so I'm just worried.
All right.
My name is Attorney David Officer. I represent Saranda Inc., and here with me is Nico Agora, who's the president of Saranda Inc., and Richard Rafferty. I don't know if you can see him, but we're here.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. We have, as part of our package for this meeting, we have the application. Can you please just perhaps offer just a little bit of background and experience for the applicants?
Mr. Okora will do that.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Nico Agora, and I'm planning to purchase the Steak Loft restaurant, which is open up. It's been open for almost 40 years, and me and my wife, myself and my wife, we on the same plot. I own Monty's for almost 22 years, and we're gonna try to keep doing the same thing, just serving to the people of Northboro, that's a good town. And we're gonna do some renovation, bring everything up to the code, and we're gonna apply for get a building permit and build a little patio on a parking lot, which is closer to the building. And
That's life.
bring it back to life.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You all, thank you.
I will know for the record that we have the report from Acting Lieutenant Brian Griffin, who does the background check on the matters of alcohol license transfers. And Lieutenant Griffin reports that there are no issues relating to this applicant or the application. So are there any questions or comments from the board members? Leslie.
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for being here and also for doing business for so many years in Northborough and having a wonderful business also. We certainly appreciate that. And I think that's great that you want to take over the Steak Loft. I would like to hear more about what kind of renovations you're planning, and are you keeping the same menu, or what kind of changes are you making?
Yeah, we're gonna redo the whole menu. We're gonna keep some of the steaks and whatever that's the best seller. And on details, we'll put some more fish and some other stuff. On renovation, we're gonna put the new chairs, tables. We're gonna redo the floor and the ceiling. We change the ceiling. That's and paint it and some other stuff, but not a major construction. We have a plan. We have a plan for that, signed by the engineer and the architect, and we're gonna bring it to the building department.
Wonderful. Well, it's a nice little spot there, so we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for all support.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. If there are any attendees to this Zoom meeting who would like to offer any comment relating to this application, you can raise your hand now. Seeing none, no other public comments. Do I have a motion to close this public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I move we close the public hearing.
Second?
Moved by Scott Rogers, seconded by Leslie Rattan. This is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead,
Aye.
Julian Hirsch,
Aye.
Scott Rogers,
Aye.
Leslie Rattan,
Aye.
and I, Jason Perot, vote aye. Let me approach it this way. Do I have a motion from a board member to approve the application to transfer the all alcoholic beverages restaurant license from RJ and JJ Holdings Incorporated to Saranda Incorporated, doing business as the Steak Loft Restaurant, for premises located at 369 West Main Street?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Julianne Hirsch, seconded by Leslie Rattan. Any further discussion? Leslie?
I just wanted to make note here too that in the letter it states that Mr. Agora will be the manager of record and plans to spend over 40 hours a week there, and he is tip certified.
Very
Yes.
good. Thank you, Leslie. If there are no other comments, this is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead,
Aye.
Julianne Hirsch,
Aye.
Scott Rogers,
Aye.
Leslie Rattan,
Aye.
and I, Jason Perot, vote aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you very much, and we wish you well with your application and with your proceeding with the Steak Loft.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night. Next up, it's past the hour of 7:05 p.m. and we have Kristen Black, Health Agent, approval and execution of Inter-Municipal Agreement for Local Public Health Services. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see all of you today. You should have all received a memo, hopefully, with your packets that outlines this document. So again, this is an intermunicipal agreement for local public health services. Just as a reminder, this is all related to the recent award to the town of Northboro on behalf of 4 communities. So Northboro, Westboro, Boylston, and Southboro for a grant issued by Mass Department of Public Health. This is a 3-year award. This first year, the total amount is $350,000. Year 2 and year 3 will each be $300,000. And again, this is for increasing the town of Northboro health agents' hours, also adding contracted nursing services, inspectional software, and other equipment that will support our 4 communities and our public health services. And just another reminder, I know this all sounds so familiar. Haven't we done this already? You did vote back on May 17th to accept the grant funds from the Mass Department of Public Health. And that was pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, Section 53A. So we're all here today to discuss the intermunicipal agreement. So this is the agreement that really outlines how the towns work together and really the legal workings of how we're going to share these positions and execute the grant. We did make, this was sent off to town council. So they've reviewed it as to form and have approved it, I guess, specific to form. It's also been reviewed by other town council, both Westboro and Southboro. Southboro voted and approved it last week. I was just on a call a few minutes ago with Boylston and their Board of Selectmen approved it. So I think, it's all moving together pretty quickly. I believe on the 20th is when the town of Westboro, their Board of Selectmen is also going to review this IMA. The great news, there's no cost to any of the towns. If anything, this is really money coming in. It's going to let us to go, have a legal framework to be able to deliver these services to our residents.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kristen. Any questions or comments from members of the board? Scott?
Hi, Kristen. Thanks. Can you just outline a little bit how, like, our responsibilities as a host town and then the obligations of the other towns?
Yep. So I guess as a host town, so we will be responsible, Becca, I've been working closely with obviously Becca and John and our accounting, would be responsible for receiving the funds and distributing the funds. We'll also be responsible as sort of the host of this shared health inspector. So the town is employing the health inspector at 32 hours. The good news is the state is covering the costs associated with the benefits for that individual. And so it will be the town and, our lawyers looking at agreements as we're moving forward this next step and executing a nursing contract. But in terms of thinking from a financial perspective, we did put in the grant for the full amount of the administrative fee for the grant. So 15% of the total grant amount will go back to the general fund, which will help to sort of supplement, obviously everybody's time. It will take a level of time. I think our biggest is just getting everything off the ground right now. But hopefully it's a well-oiled machine eventually. That I will be directly responsible for supervising the health inspector that's shared with Boylston and Southborough. And also I'll, as the town of Northborough, and I'll be obviously a department head lead overseeing the nursing contract. And then each individual town will execute their own contracts for like the software, et cetera. The obligations of the other towns, I guess they sort of get off easy, right? They don't have that overhead or setting it up other than getting these legal frameworks in place, but we'll have the added benefits, obviously, of the 15% and obviously having some of these individuals more housed in town. I think there'll be some benefits, hopefully, the town of Northboro for sure. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments from members of the board? Leslie? You're muted, Leslie.
So sorry. It's interesting thank you, Kristen, that according to Mass Department of Public Health, the state anticipates 3 renewal options, each for a 3-year period, with a final end date of procurement for June 30th, 2033. So I think that's great that the state is willing to invest. That's a large amount of money that they're putting into this, and I think that is wonderful. So what do you think the likelihood is that they'll really extend it past that, or do you think it's evolving too much still?
I think it's evolving too much. I think right now, right, everybody's throwing money at public health. Like it seems like the thing to do. I can't speak for where the state will be. I mean, they're really committed to it. They know the work it takes to really start these regional groups. These grants, I think they've awarded 28 so far. They have a few more grants they're going to award through a second cycle. But, getting everything up and running is really the hardest, building trust, forming these relationships. So, I mean, DPH in all of our, calls, our weekly calls through COVID, they're really pushing for regionalization. I think if anything COVID has shown us, it's really hard to stand alone, especially through a pandemic and the push and pull of resources and all the rest. So I do think DPH is committed. But just like any other state appropriation, I'll be the John Cordero on this one and just say, you can't count on it. Who knows? But I think it's the direction they really want to see Massachusetts go. We're one of the only states, I think the only state in the country that has these individual town by town health departments. So, I mean, really moving away from that model is something the state's been talking about for over 30 years. And they pushed out this large blueprint for public health, and everything is about trying to regionalize. So I think they're really behind it. And I don't think 3 years and doing it and then dropping the funding is going to be enough to keep up the momentum. So I'm hoping it will be there. That's where we're aiming. But the good news is the way we really designed this grant, even if we were to lose that funding, the employee appointments, contracted nursing services, like we've been careful to really try to pin things to the 3-year until we really know more.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Because you always wonder about a funding cliff kind of thing where everybody gets all excited about all these things. You have these things in place because we're receiving the extra funding, and then they drop you on your head. And all sorts of good things happening that we can't support in our budget. So I'll be very curious to see how the state proceeds on that. So thank you so much. It looks like a fair amount of work for you in particular.
I think it's going to be worth it. This will hopefully even, be in place to help with the childhood immunization clinics this fall, booster shots if necessary. So like the timing, actually, it will be a lot of work. It's been a lot of work, thanks to Becca, especially, who's been really responsive. But I think, once we get through this first month, it should be we're really designing it to be a lighter lift.
Right. Great. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Leslie. Any other comments? Seeing none, Kristen, I'll just add my thanks for all the work that's gone into this and the support. Obviously, Northborough has taken a leadership position among the member communities that are putting this together, and we certainly would anticipate that the regionalization will provide a lot of better coordination and efficiencies across the towns than what, as you had described, what had been the case where it was essentially every town for itself. Does that make sense? If there's nothing more, do I have a motion for the board to approve and execute the Inter-Municipal Agreement for Local Public Health Services as presented by Health Agent Kristen Black, and to authorize the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen to sign the agreement on behalf of the board and the town?
So moved.
And do I have a second? There it is. Moved by Julianne Hirsch, seconded by Scott Rogers. This is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead.
Aye.
Julianne Hirsch.
Aye.
Scott Rogers.
Aye.
Leslie Rutan.
Aye.
And I, Jason Perot, also vote aye, so it carries unanimously. Thank you, Kristen. We wish you well in the continued effort to get everything launched and get the coordination going. So,
Thank you.
good night. That brings us past the hour of 7:10 p.m. and we have Timothy Kalin, Diversity and Inclusion Committee, update on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee activities.
Mr. Chair, we have quite a few members of that committee. Becca, do you know if they were all, if they all want me to bring them in, I'd be happy to, or are they just here to observe?
Just Tim.
Okay. So before I started clicking allow in, I wanted to wait. Let me get to the right one.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Tim. Welcome.
Tim?
Thank you for having me.
Tim, why don't you, I guess as a first step, you could perhaps provide a little bit of background. I assume your presentation is planning to do that, and could also introduce the members of the committee who aren't being brought into the room, but we'd like to make sure everyone is acknowledged.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have a presentation, and just will need to share my screen for that.
Yep.
So I am the chair of the Northboro Diversity and Inclusion Committee. The committee was established in August of 2020. We had our first meeting in December of 2020, I believe it was. It's a 9-member committee, including myself. There's 8 other members. And part of my introduction, I just wanted to send out an enormous thank you to the 8 other members that have worked on the committee. This is a new committee, so we had to start from scratch. A lot of work has gone into it, and the 8 other members have just been absolutely fantastic. And I am just been honored every week to work with them. They're just a tremendous group of people. The 8 members are Becca Meekins, our Assistant Town Administrator, Deidre Writing, Virginia Sims George, Miriam Ibrahimi, Hamilton Soriano, Mary Leach, Lauren Bailey Jones, and Sheikha Holland. And they've been great.
Tim, do you have sharing permissions?
I do.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
All right, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
So just as an introduction, you just introduced the members. I also wanted to thank Leslie Rutan for her work on the interview subcommittee. We had a lot of people that interviewed for the positions, and Leslie was instrumental in putting together the group that we have. So I just wanted to thank her. And I also wanted to thank John Cordair. He was very helpful as we were putting the committee together and laying the groundwork for what we needed to do to get the committee going. So sometimes as a committee, we get asked what is diversity and inclusion? And, from a real simple standpoint, diversity is just difference. It's just difference among people in a certain setting. And inclusion is just being acceptance of that difference and welcoming everybody. One quote that I've heard people use quite a bit is diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. And I think that's a really good quote to encompass what diversity and inclusion is. As I mentioned, the history of the committee, there isn't much to it. Like I said, we started end of 2020, beginning of 2021. We spent the first few meetings trying to get our feet underneath of us. And what we came up with as a group was to focus on really 4 silos: training, recruiting and hiring, a strategic plan, and community engagement. And within those 4 silos, there's more details to those, but those are the 4 areas that we really focused on as a committee. And I also wanted to say too, before we get into some of the details, we've spoken to quite a few departments and committees and various people throughout the community, and the support that we've gotten has been overwhelmingly positive. Everybody has just been so welcoming and so open, and it's just been great. It's been just a very positive experience. So I wanted to just mention, and thank everybody that's taken part in our meetings over the course of the first 6 months. It's been just a great experience. So thank you to everybody on that end. So I just wanted to add this in, just more for public record than anything else. This is just the scope and charge of the committee. I think the most important aspect of this from a public viewing aspect is that our committee has no policy setting authority. We've been established as a committee to do research and provide a written report to the Board of Selectmen with our recommendations, and then the Board of Selectmen will choose how to move forward with those recommendations or not. So I just wanted to, just so that the public's aware, we've gotten some questions about that, about moving forward and what impact people are going to see from our work. So I just wanted to add that in. And if anybody has any questions along the way, just please let me know. One of the first things that we did as a committee is we put together a survey that we sent out to the community. We shared that through a number of different social media aspects, personal social media channels, and some written publications. And why do we do a survey? We did a survey because we needed a baseline. We needed to gain some understanding from the entire community about what the feelings around diversity and inclusion were in the community. So that's why we felt the survey was the best, most effective way to get feedback from residents on that end. Just give me a second. So we sent out a 15-question survey. 5 of those questions were demographic based and 10 questions were diversity and inclusion based. Our goal was to keep it under 3 minutes so that people can answer it real quick. And hopefully that would drive participation in the survey. So I'll share with you. These are the results from the survey. So the first question we asked was, do you currently live in Northboro?
Excuse me, Tim, if you're trying to share that, you need to stop the first share and start a new share. Or are you just speaking of it?
Oh, you can't see the...
No, you have to, that's why I said you have to stop the first and stop your share. And now start it again with what you want to share. Yeah, you're still showing your PowerPoint.
My apologies.
I didn't want you to get too far along and go, oh, you can't see it.
How's that?
There you go.
All right. Sorry about that. So the first question we asked was, do you currently live in Northboro? And people that answered no to that question were actually bumped to the end of the survey, so they couldn't answer the questions. And this is how we filtered out people that weren't from Northboro and just kept the answers to residents of Northboro. So as you can see, 773 people answered this question. 87% answered yes. So that's 672 people that we got to come in to take the survey, which is just tremendous. I did add some demographic information from the census, and right now, Northboro, well, in 2019, Northboro had 15,109 residents. So out of 15,109 residents, we got 672 responses. This is the first question. I see strong leadership support of the town's values of diversity and inclusion. 531 answered, 242 skipped. And then you could see the breakdowns of the responses. And this will all be shared with you, so you'll be able to look more deeply into this without taking a lot of time tonight. Residents who are different from most others are treated fairly within our town. And again, you can see the responses. People of all cultures and backgrounds are respected here. Again, the responses. I feel included and respected in our community. Responses. I'm comfortable talking about my background and cultural experiences with my neighbors. Does our community demonstrate a commitment to meeting the needs of residents with disabilities? The town includes people of all backgrounds and beliefs in town activities and events. I feel welcome at town-sponsored activities and events. And the town of Northboro can do more to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. So then in the demographic information, these are just basic demographic. What is your gender? 63% were female. The census data shows that 52.5% of our population is female, so we actually got better female participation in this survey than is represented in the community. What is your age? The understanding of different age brackets. What is your race or ethnicity? So here you can see the breakdown. For people that identify as white, 70% of the people that answered this question were white. According to the census data, 84% of our town is white. And which school do you live closest to? The reason why we included this question wasn't so much about the school. It was more to get a sense of geographic, to see if there was any disconnect in the information and the feedback based on geographic locations within the town, almost like the voting precincts in a way. And then how long have you lived in Northboro? So again, we'll share this information with you so that you have it. But then we also broke down the data and used a tool called Tableau to get more detail around the answers that we got. So over here, we have all the questions. We have this is for across all people that took the survey. We got an average response. We get a standard deviation around the response, and standard deviation measures the spread or the dispersion of the answers, so you get an idea of how far apart from the average the answers were. And up here is the color code for the answer. So strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. So as you look through, you can see, most of the questions are in the strongly agree category. We have strong leadership support, diversity, and inclusion. That one had a much bigger neutral. But you can get a sense by the average response that they're all around agree to neutral. So then what we did is we can break it down by race and compare the answers between race and question. So for example, this question is, the town addresses diversity and inclusion. You compare Black people that identify as Black or African American versus people that identify as white. And you can change it. So if you don't want to look at Black or African American, you can see how that white compares to people that identified as Asian and so forth. And you look at different questions, so how they measure across different questions. And the problem that we had here was there just wasn't a lot of people from a count point or a count standpoint across the different ethnic groups. So what we did was we combined them into Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So now we only have two groups. We have Black, Indigenous, people of color, and white. And this now there still wasn't a whole, there was only about 30% that fell into this category versus 70% of white, but this gave us a much stronger or broader data set to compare. So again, you can look at it across different questions and see how they compare. And then we looked at it by school. So by district. So you can look at just Lincoln Street. So Lincoln Street here, Peasley, Proctor, and Z. So we spent a lot of time discussing this information. And once you dig into it, as Chief Parenti and I have joked many times in the past that we're data geeks. So when you get some cool data to dig through, you can really find some underlying themes from the data. So, and again, we will share some of these with you once we submit all this to the board. So here's the census data. I've already talked through that, so we'll just go through that. So we have met with a number of departments and committees. When we met with departments and committees, what we discussed, the Dni Committee, what the Dni Committee's goals were when talking to various departments and committees, and our goals was just to gain a better understanding of how the departments and committees operated and how diversity, equity, and inclusion fit into their operations. It wasn't to find flaws or anything along those sorts. It was to learn. And then also when we met with the departments and committees, we tried to do the best that we could to get across and explain that the Dni Committee's role was really to be a resource to help the departments and committees on their DE&I journeys. We were partners in this. We weren't we are here to help. So that was the Dni Committee's role. So the first department we met with was the police department. We met with Chief Liver on February 4th, and we had a lot of discussion around recruiting and the trouble that the police department, not just in Northboro, but across the country and industry-wide, the issues they're having with recruiting. And the chief shared with us that 10 or 15 years ago, they had 2 openings with over 300 applicants. In this last recruitment, they had 33 applicants to fill 3 positions. And 2 of those positions have been filled. And out of the 33 people that applied, only 16 passed the physical requirement. So as you can, and hearing the chief talk about this, you can really hear there's an issue with recruitment. So we had some very deep discussions about that, and we'll follow up in our final recommendations. Some of the areas that may be able to be improved or help the chief with recruiting. We did discuss diversity training in the police department. They had a couple trainings last year. The police department has stringent policies on people will be treated. And the chief pointed out that the department age-wise is very young. So the younger generation is more receptive to diversity, inclusion, and difference. So they've been much more open and receptive to the concepts behind diversity and inclusion within the department. We also talked about gender. I think it's important to point out that the chief mentioned his number one responsibility is the safety of his officers and his staff and the safety of our community. And by having a diverse police department improves the safety of his department and improves the safety of our community. So he is more than open to any and all diversity and inclusion efforts, including gender. And he said that gender is one of his number one goals. He understands that the police department doesn't have any female officers, and he has made that a priority, and it has been a priority within the department. He also shared that Northboro had the first female police officer hired as a patrol officer. Our woman's name was Linda Richardson in 1973. She was the first female in the country to be a patrol officer. So Northboro does have a history of gender diversity within the department. And again, we had some further discussions around that, and we'll include those in our final recommendations. And then lastly, we talked about National Night Out, and that's something that the police department used to do with having a cookout down in McAfee Ellis Park, where the officers would cook hamburgers and hot dogs, and people would get a chance to go and talk with the community. So that is something that it would be great if we could find a way to make that happen again in the future. So again, if you have a chance to watch the recording of that meeting, I think people would learn quite a bit about the police department. It was a really interesting conversation, not just about diversity and inclusion, but how the chief's leadership style, and the town should be proud to have somebody like Chief Liver leading our police department. He's a great guy. And just as we're talking about the police department, I just want to add, just on a personal note, I just wanted to pass my condolences on to the Hutchins family, and to Chief Hutchins recently passed away. So I just wanted to pass along my condolences to the Hutchins family. So that was our meeting with the police department. So on April 1st, we met with Chief Parenti at the fire department. And Chief, if you have anything to add while I'm going through this, please feel free to pipe in. And again, as was with the police department, the same issue at the fire department, recruiting. And then the chief's greatest challenge is recruiting and hiring. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. And again, it comes down to the number and quality of candidates that apply for the position. And one of the greatest challenges that we have here, as it says below, is our department is a EMS/firefighter department. So our EMS people are firefighters too. Our firefighters are EMS. They're both one and the same. So when the chief is hiring people, they have to be trained in one or the other. And the educational requirements for an EMS person is about 12 to 18 months. And can range anywhere from $12,000 plus to get the required education. So, the chief is always looking for people that come in with an EMS background that he can train to become firefighters, because the training process for a firefighter is a little bit shorter. So we talked about recruiting. Chief Parenti, much like Chief Liver, talked about some of his leadership strategies within the department to make sure that the department is well-versed in diversity and inclusion. We did talk about the role of gender at the fire department. And again, there's no female firefighters. And again, that comes down to a lack of female candidates and female candidates that have the EMS background. But Chief has helped female firefighters get positions in other communities. And we had a long discussion about the new fire station and how important that's going to be to help with recruiting, because we'll give prospective EMS and firefighters a clean, healthy, safe place to work with all the modern tools and safety precautions that a new facility will provide that they just don't currently have at the current station. And at the current station, it was built in the mid-'70s for a volunteer firefighter service. That was male only. So the current fire station just doesn't have separate living quarters for females. Chief Parenti pointed out that there are things that they can do to accommodate females, but it is not the most comfortable or private of settings. So a new fire station will help alleviate some of those concerns. Next, we met with the school department. On May 6th, we met with Superintendent Martineau and Rhonda Webb. We discussed quite a bit of things that are going on in the school system. One of the first things we talked about is Chief Martineau outlined the Vision 2020 program. That resulted in developing a new vision and strategic plan to guide the work of equity and inclusion in our school systems. And one of the questions they were trying to answer is, what types of graduates do we want leaving Algonquin, Melican, and our elementary schools? What attributes do we want our graduates to leave with? And Superintendent Martineau mentioned critical and creative thinkers, communicators, socially and civically engaged, and healthy and balanced. They reaffirmed their core values as a district, which included integrity, empathy, equity, inclusivity, perseverance, and respect. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that we had when we were having this discussion is we have the census data and the data that we got back from the survey, but that's really driven towards adults. And so Superintendent Martin would point out that the future of diversity can be seen in our middle schools and grammar schools already. That the diversity has grown over the last number of years, and it's really becoming more apparent. So the work that the school department and we as a community, it's not just for immediate results. It's to benefit the kids in our community as well. So then Rhoda Webb talked about the work of the Coalition of Equity, and that's to build a community partnership and create conditions for courageous conversations. And all of this work is geared towards preparing students for college or careers, and having students entering the world that have a background and understanding of diversity and inclusion actually gives them somewhat of a competitive advantage because they've been exposed to it and they understand it, and that's where the world is moving towards. So the work that they're doing at the school departments is important. They're also going to be conducting a equity audit of the faculty and staff to make sure that the diversity of the faculty and staff represents the diversity that they have in the student body. And the school department, much like the police department, much like the fire department, are having some issues around recruiting and hiring a more diverse faculty and staff. And one of the things that we pointed out, that Virginia Sims pointed out during our meeting, was to reach out to historically Black colleges as a place to possibly recruit future faculty and staff. And lastly, we discussed a collaboration between the Dni Committee and the Coalition of Equity. There's a lot of things that we share in common for goals, and it would make a lot of sense for us to combine resources and move forward in a collaborative manner. On June 3rd, we met with the Community Affairs Committee. We met with Susie Cislica and Pam Markey. And again, we talked with them about recruiting new members. And the biggest takeaway that we had from the Community Affairs Committee is there's a real opportunity to collaborate with the Dni Committee on future events. There's a lot of things that we could do around town. For example, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Pride Month. There are a lot of things that we can do to around those events or those months. Also on June 3rd, we met with Allie Lane, the Recreation Director. Long discussion about Allie's goal for having our recreation department and all our recreation facilities having accessibility for all. A lot of talk about Assabet Park and the work that's going there to make that more accessible, and to continue to make all of our recreational facilities accessible. Also talked about the walking path around the senior center. The senior center, our seniors in our community are obviously an important part of our community. So the walking path gives the seniors a good option for getting outside and enjoying the walking path. And then Allie is also going to research D&I training for her staff, because again, the youth coming in to take part in the camp programs over the course of the summer are becoming more diverse. So Allie was researching possible D&I training options for the staff that oversees those camps. On July 1st, we met with Jen Bruneau, the library director. The library can play a very key role in reaching out and educating our community on diversity and inclusion. So we had some conversation around that, facilitating conversations. talked about possibly introducing the concept of a lyceum. If you have any questions about, at the end when we have questions, if you have any questions about the lyceum, I don't know if Lauren Bailey Jones is here, but she was really, she has the information on what a lyceum would look like. One of the interesting conversations we had with the library was the Dewey Decimal System that they use to catalog books at the library, and how antiquated the Dewey system is. So they've had discussions at the library about ditching the Dewey Decimal System. One of the examples she used was how they catalog religious books and how there's so much space for Catholic books, but there's very little space for any other religion outside of that. So they're looking to come up with a new plan for cataloging books within the library. The library is also, creating safe spaces for difficult conversations. And then again, much like everybody else we've talked to, hiring and recruiting process in the library field and the challenges they're facing, getting diverse people to pursue a career in the library field. And then on July 1st, we talked with Liz Trechiak, the Senior Center Director. She talked about the current diverse programming they have at the Senior Center, Pride celebrations in June, pronouns and pastries with LGBTQ specialist. She talked about how successful the walking path has been in partnership with the rec department. Creating a community partnership with intergenerational partnerships. She talked at length about how great it is to have kids from the high school come in and run programs and help out, and how they work in the bistro, and how it's just a great program for both the seniors and the high school kids. And one thing that she mentioned too, which I found interesting, she mentioned that sometimes people have assumptions about the senior community, about what their beliefs are and how open they are to different lifestyles. And she said that as a whole, the senior community is very open-minded, and there is a great willingness to learn. So that was good to hear. So we have very good conversation with Liz. So the key takeaways from our meetings with all the departments and committees, there are certainly challenges around recruiting and hiring. And, we as the Diversity and Inclusion Committee have been doing our own research into that, and we'll have some recommendations on ways that hopefully can help departments improve recruiting and hiring. Another key takeaway was education. When we analyzed the data results from the survey, one glaring thing that was apparent to us was the default to answer questions in the agree to neutral, which to me, and after our discussions, lends us to believe that there's just a general lack of understanding or a lack of exposure to diversity and inclusion. And some educational programs in the community may be helpful working with the library. We met with the Northboro Y. We may be able to partner with the Y on doing some programming there. There is certainly an open and willingness within the community to embrace a lot of improvement in diversity and inclusion. And if you go back and have a chance to watch the recordings of our meetings, I think that will be very apparent in how those conversations went and the tone of those conversations. And lastly, youth in the future, the kids in our town, they're already more diverse, and the more we can do today to make improvements in our community, the better it will be for them tomorrow. And again, as a committee, we've had some deep discussions about that and what that will look like. And in our final report, we'll have some recommendations around that. So as a committee, we have taken some actions. When we talked through the survey, we issued a statement on AAPI violence. We issued a statement on Juneteenth. And every member of the committee has been very active in community outreach, just talking with people, explaining what the Diversity and Inclusion Committee is about and how people can get involved. One of the things that, as part of our plan, is a diversity and inclusion social media and communications plan. There's a lot of information on the slide. I'm not going to go through it. It's just so everybody, it's there if you want to look through it. This is our strategy, or the strategy that we're working through right now as far as a Facebook page goes. We're still working through some of that. We still have to talk about who's going to monitor the site in content creation, because there is the public information aspect to it. So we're well aware of that. We're walking through that and working through that. I just want to thank Chica Holland for taking the time to put this together. She put a lot of time and effort into this plan, and it's excellent. And I think it will make a big difference. One of the things that we're talking about with Facebook is there's an author. Her name is Debbie Irving. She wrote a book called Waking Up White, and she's a very popular keynote speaker. I've had the chance to talk to her a few times. And one of the things she launched on her website is a Diversity and Inclusion 21-day challenge, and exposing yourself to a different culture every day for 21 straight days. And we thought it would be a great thing to document on Facebook is the members of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee going through that 21-day challenge and sharing our experiences and our thoughts on that. We also do one of the other areas that we've focused on is community engagement. And there's 4 areas in community engagement: events within town, the Lyceum, communication, and data collection and analysis. We think between those 4 areas that we can really get the community involved and hopefully gain a better understanding and openness to diversity and inclusion within our community. So then over the next 6 months, the last 6 months of our committee's charge, what we're going to work on is a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. We're going to continue to meet with departments and committees. We have 2 other meetings lined up right now with the town administrator in August, and then hopefully the Historic Commission in September. We're going to put together a community listening session. Right now, tentatively, that's scheduled for September 23rd, I believe it is. So we'd like to have the Facebook page up and going as soon as we can so that we can use that as an outreach and awareness to our listening session. We'll also use other outreach strategies. And then we're also going to work on a diversity, equity, and inclusion community calendar so that we can, so that the community as a whole can plan events, work with the Community Affairs Committee, Library, Apple Fest on putting events and educational programs together. So any questions? I know that's a lot of information, but we've had a busy 6 months.
It certainly has been, Tim. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this and your being able to present that to us here tonight. Becca, do you have any comments you'd like to add as a member of the committee?
No, I think Tim did a great job covering it. Thank you, Tim. And I just want to extend my thank you to the other members of the committee as well. Folks have put a lot of time and effort into it thus far, and I know that we're all really excited to do our final recommendations to the board. So we're working hard and we're looking forward to coming back before you again at the end of the year.
Great. Thank you, Becca. I do see in the attendees list, I think we have another 5 members. Two others are not present that I see on Zoom, Hamilton Soriano and Mariam Ibrahimi. But I do see Deidre Writing, Lauren Bailey Jones, Mary Leach, Sheikha Holland, and Virginia Sims George. If any of you would like to come into the meeting, if you have any comments you'd like to offer at this time, you can raise your hand and we can pull you in if you like. Entirely voluntary, but we'd certainly welcome you in. I have Lauren Bailey Jones, and let me bring you in, Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Hi, I just wanted to thank Tim for the presentation and for giving such a great summary of all of our work thus far for the past 6 or 7 months. One thing that, Tim, you mentioned that I just wanted to give a little bit more information on is the Lyceum. And I think that this is a really great idea that stemmed from a member of our community, Kathleen Howland. So Kathleen is a member of the Regional School Committee, and she is also a member of the Coalition for Equity, which, as Tim mentioned, is a group of teachers, school committee members, administrators, and students who have basically come together to do sort of what we're doing in town, but through the school district. And so Kathleen talked to the coalition about sort of this history of the Lyceum, which stems back from Aristotle's time. And Northborough has a rich history in having these public halls or lectures where people can discuss intellectual ideas. So I guess I just wanted to give her credit for that, for that idea. And that the school department has really been talking about how can we make this a reality? How can we bring this idea of the Lyceum back? How can we connect the schools and the towns in order to have really rich discussions? And like Tim was talking about, all members of our community, the seniors, kids, families. So I just wanted to give a little bit more background on that. And if you have any other questions, I would say myself, Deidre Writing, Kathleen Howland, those would be great people to ask.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Lauren. I appreciate your work on the committee and being here this evening to provide us with that bit of elaboration.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. And I have Deidre Writing. Let me bring you in, Deidre. Hello, Deidre.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Tim for the presentation. Again, hearkening that it was a great summary of what we've been able to accomplish. But really what I want to say is thank you to all of you for charging this committee. It's been so eye-opening to me as a committee member to hear from everyone we've spoken with, as well as to dive into the data from the survey. And I'm very much looking forward to both continuing our meetings, as well as coming up with a set of suggestions that will really be impactful for Northboro. So again, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Deidre. Would any other member care to comment at this time? I'm not seeing any other hands up at the moment. Okay, very good. Thank you. Leslie, I'll go to the members of the board now for comments or questions. Go ahead, Leslie.
Okay. Great job, Tim. You really did, first of all, wonderful job with this presentation, but I think about this, you really took the bull by the horns and got this going from the get-go, the initiative you took with this. and the original statement that you put together with, I believe, Virginia Sims George.
Yep.
And right.
Yep.
Right. Which was terrific, and that really got the ball rolling on this. And hearing this presentation was great because as this is a new committee, I think it's great for us and for everyone else to hear this kind of detail. I think so much more has been accomplished than I thought would be in this period of time in terms of the meetings that you've had and the kind of conversations you've had with these department heads is really very, very impressive. I also like the survey and the way you looked at the numbers and the spreadsheets and charts and so forth and so on, and looked at all these things differently. I guess I hate to generalize in one sentence, but it almost seems like based on what I saw from the survey numbers, that people generally feel okay about things, but feel we could do more. I'm not sure that people know what more necessarily is, but I didn't see anything particularly glaring. To my mind, recruiting really is a huge issue. And I've had some of my own conversations with a couple department heads. And I wonder if there's a way to even get information from the outside looking in. Is there a reason it's so difficult to recruit, for example, with our police department and fire department? What is the image of Northboro looking in at us? Is there a reason people aren't applying or not interested? What is it? Is it worth talking to hiring and recruiting firms to find out whether people just don't want to be here? And is there a reason why? So I don't know, just throwing that out there. Is that something, worth looking at in terms of why we don't seem to be able to recruit the way we want to and the way we should? But it really was interesting to see all these numbers. Everything you did was wonderful, and I really appreciate all your work on this and the rest of the committee members. It's a fantastic committee, and as you mentioned, we interviewed a lot of people. It was an interesting couple of weeks interviewing all the people, and I think we put a good committee together. So I want to thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And I don't want to speak for Chief Liver, but it's one of the things that we talked about with all the departments that we spoke to. It's not a Northboro issue. Mm-hmm. It's not that people don't want to work in our community. It's an industry issue. Every community is having the same challenges that we're seeing in Northboro as far as recruiting, hiring, and retention goes. It's just people don't want to get into the field anymore for whatever reason. We had discussions with both the police and fire department about youth programs between Chief Parenti, it's the Explorers, is it? Yeah, through the Boy Scouts, and Chief Liver, there was a program for youth. I can't remember it off the top of my head that used to be for kids looking to possibly get into policing, in their middle school years.
It was Police Explorers.
Yeah.
Police Explorers, yeah. Yeah, so we did discuss those things, and again, if you do have time, I really do encourage you to watch some of our meetings because everybody was so open and very transparent about kind of behind the curtain what goes on in the departments. It was really, as Deidre said, it was really eye-opening, and a lot of people. I don't know if a lot of people in the community understand or realize the efforts that are being put in to address some of these issues, and it's people are being heard, and attempts and efforts are being made on by all of our departments. It's just the environment that we're in right now.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Kristen.
Hi, thank you, Jason. My only complaint about your results of your survey, they were really interesting, and I loved all the color coding, but it would have been really nice to have it earlier because I don't look at stuff like that so fast, and you kind of went through it really quickly. So did you say we were going to get copies of those at some point, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great. And then I did have a couple of other comments. One of the groups that I've been pursuing a lot of education about anti-racism is called Embrace Race, and their website is embracerace.org. And I've been to a few of their webinars. They're really great. They're based in Amherst, Mass, but they're a nationwide organization, or even maybe all over the world. The webinars I've been to through them have been really well run and very educational, and kind of give people from all backgrounds a taste of maybe what other people are dealing with. So on that point, I'm eager to hear about your 21-day, whatever it was, I forget the wording you used, but if you're going to post that on your Facebook page, I don't know, whatever, that sounded really interesting to me, and I look forward to hearing how that goes. And I also did speak to Kathleen Howland about her Lyceum idea back when we were both in the middle of election chaos. And I thought it was a great idea too, but I think it's wonderful that you guys have included that and will incorporate that in your recommendations. So I look forward to hearing more of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. Board members, Leslie, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I want to add too is that I look forward to that Facebook page. I think that that's a good plan. And obviously, assuming it's going to be a public page, I think that's a wonderful way for outreach, because you never know who's going to see it. And it just really sets the tone for the community and how we handle things and how we do things here. And it could change somebody's mind in terms of whether they would like to come here and apply for a job, for example, or move here or whatever. So I think that kind of outreach is awesome. I think that's great. That's a great plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Tim, I had a question on the survey results, and I think obviously we would like to see the responses to that be positive or at least neutral. But for the responses that were on the negative end of the scale, did the committee receive any additional kind of comments to put those responses into context or anything like that? Or did you have any additional detailed information to understand where those negative responses were coming from?
We did receive some comments. We did make comments available on a few of the questions and did receive comments. We can flush out, or we can tie comments to answers. It's just not available in the information that we'll provide to you. That's just another level of detail that we'll need to dig into. But surprisingly, the comments towards the negative were very varied. We had people that said they felt uncomfortable wearing their Make America Great Again hat at town events. So it covered a number of different areas. It wasn't what you immediately would think it would be. There was just a number of different things. One thing that I think as a committee that we would have done differently was to do a better job around disabilities. I think we did an okay job with that question. We did get some general feedback on that, but I think for the most part, people that don't experience that on a day-to-day basis don't really know. So I think we could have done a better job on that. And the comments let us know that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from members of the board? Julianne.
Yes, just a quick thank you to you, Tim, to your committee, all the department heads and staff that helped gather all this important information. So thank you.
Thank you, Julianne.
And if there are no other comments, Tim, I'll just add my thanks. I appreciate, approximately this time last year, you were kind of leading the effort in these initiatives and providing some of the expertise and leadership in that regard. So we appreciate your having kind of spearheaded some of that at that time. And then in the ensuing months here, although you're not currently a member of the Board of Selectmen, continuing as the board's designee to continue with the committee and complete the work for later this year. Do we have a schedule for the remainder of the committee's work, or a time frame where we're expecting to see the results?
Becca, can you touch on that?
So the committee is planning to make recommendations by the end of the calendar year. The exact timing of that will sort of depend on everything else you guys typically have going on. It is also budget season, so hopefully we'll be able to squeeze ourselves in there because, looking long-term, there are some items that may have long-term budgetary impacts, and we just want to make sure that you're able to consider those while you're going through budget season. So we definitely want to get ourselves in there by the end of the calendar year.
Very good. Thank you. Any parting words, Tim?
Again, I can't thank the people that have served on the committee enough. Those 8 people, to me, they really represent everything that makes Northboro such a wonderful community. They're just a great group of people. And also to all the people that came in and met with us over the last 6 months. Again, Northboro is very fortunate to have such strong leadership at so many key positions throughout town. I just hope those people know how much they are appreciated.
Thank you, Tim. I have a hand up for Mary Leach. I'm going to bring Mary in for a moment here.
Hi there. I don't want to take much. I just want to thank Tim. He is absolutely amazing, and we could not have accomplished what we have accomplished thus far without him. So Tim, a huge thank you on behalf of our committee. You really are rocking it. And I thank all of you for the opportunity to the committee. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mary. If that concludes it, then thank you all once again, and we look forward to the continued progress and the recommendations coming from the Diversity and Inclusion Committee.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the time, and thank you for your attention. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Good night. And this brings us to reports. We'll start with Kristen Wickstead.
Hey, who's ready this week? Who's prepared? Okay, I just gotta pull it up. Hold on, because I have it on a Word document. I'm not just gonna sit here and go, how come I have to go first? Okay. So for the Community Affairs Committee, they take the summer off. They don't have meetings, but Susie asked me to remind everyone that the first concert of the season is called Playing Dead, and it's at Ellsworth McAfee Park, Sunday, July 25th. So that's this Sunday, 5 to 7 p.m. No one is actually dead. It's a Grateful Dead thing, in case you didn't know that. And evidently they're going to start right at 5, and it's going to be really fun. So I hope I can make it. I did attend my first Council on Aging meeting. I don't think they knew who I was when I showed up, but at the end I introduced myself. It was at the Senior Center, which is a really nice place. If you haven't been there, you should go check it out. I met most of the members of the council. They're a very diligent group. They were discussing Applefest already, which isn't until September. So that actually motivated me to start thinking ahead about other things that are happening in the fall, like kids going back to school, which brings me to some traffic and safety issues that people have been bringing up, emailing about, just talking to me about in general. And traffic and safety is not on the agenda right now for various reasons, and it's partly my fault for not making things more clear when I was asking for it to be on the agenda about what I was expecting. So, but for people who have had issues with truck traffic or in general dangerous traffic situations, please continue to write in to the board or call in during public comment. That's always really helpful. Because one of the jobs of this Board of Selectmen is to regulate the public ways, right? And so a big part of that is safety. I understand that people are sharing information on Facebook about traffic, and sometimes it's dangerous situations. I've read about Boundary Street, Church Street, Allen Street, Hudson Street, Whitney Street, and Lincoln Street, and others. They've all been seeing an increased number of trucks or just dangerous driving in general, but I think mostly it's trucks. So clearly it's a town-wide problem. Actually, it's kind of, as far as the trucks go, it's really a region-wide problem. And we all need to work with our neighboring towns on how to best proceed in keeping residents and especially in our case, students safe. It's not something that's easily fixed. I can tell you right now that at the next meeting, John Coder will update us on what he's been doing personally in his dealings with mainly Amazon, and I'm sure there are other things he's going to update us on. And I know he spends a good deal of time working with representatives from those facilities, all the industrial facilities and the warehouses and the distribution centers. One question I've heard a few people wondering about is the zoning violations. One of the letters we received said they understand that Amazon is supposed to be making only right turns, but it doesn't seem to be enforced or coming from the Marlboro side and not the Northboro side. So a big question I've been getting is, does the BOS have a plan for managing these zoning violations? Because if we're not implementing fines, then they really have no reason to abide. And then other questions are about the safety zone, about cameras facing Amazon and the FedEx driveway, so we can tell who's breaking the rule. Because the idea of residents being ready with their phones is great, but I'm not sure it's doing any good. And even though we've got some great pictures and some great videos from drivers, I'm not sure it's helping that much. And excuse me, there's a fly. How do we keep trucks from idling in parking lots around town? Because there really aren't enough rest stops, so I'm not even sure. I just was thinking, I know we're going to get updates on what John has been doing, but another reason to bring up traffic and safety is to remember that Northboro's not in a bubble. Like Kristen Black explained, she's got this whole regional vaccination clinic going that's going to continue, and it's a great example of our towns collaborating for the greater good. So our job as a board is to discuss possible regional collaborations and solutions. Traffic and safety is not a one-person job. We could consider having it as part of the agenda, maybe at least monthly or so, until people feel safe walking and biking through the town. I encourage residents to share their stories, good or bad. It's a team effort to regulate the public ways, and our board meetings could include conversations about what the problems are, how we might address them, and how other towns are addressing them. Additionally, for everyone's information, this Wednesday there will be a regional panel run by the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, the CMRPC, on all the new distribution centers in the various towns in our area and how every town is handling the significant increase in truck traffic. So if that's something that's interesting
interesting to you, you can register. It's obviously free. I'm registered and will be attending. It's also going to be recorded, so if you register, you can watch it later. Traffic continues to be a concern for many people in town, and I'll continue to work on it. My goal is to do that as part of a team effort. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. Julianne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first item I wanted to bring up was, number one, to apologize for my power outage last week and my sudden disappearance. But as I reviewed the minutes, there was something that really caught my eye, and it was an announcement from the town administrator about, and I will quote from the minutes, that the state revenue outlook is projecting that the state will close out FY 2021 with an estimated $4 billion above budget. So the minutes continue. The question is, what will the state do with this surplus in addition to replenishing their stabilization fund? He added that in addition to Northboro, the Mass Municipal Association Fiscal Policy Committee is strongly advocating that the state increase the Chapter 90 transportation funds from $200 million to $400 million across all communities. So I wasn't sure where that particular money is coming from. There's all kinds of talk about, you know, COVID relief fund and the Rescue Plan Act and various other things. And I'm requesting, if my fellow board members also need this information, that we have a presentation on the various programs that we may be entitled to some considerable amounts of money, because I'm sure they're all coming with different rules and regulations and guidelines, and it would be very helpful to know where we stand with all of that. In addition, of course, the biggest question is, with this windfall, how will the decision be made on how to spend it? So if you would please consider adding that to an agenda, I would personally find it helpful. I don't know about the others. And secondly, I was also going to bring up a little question about traffic. Since we are going to get a presentation, a report next meeting, could that possibly be a public hearing so that residents can call in, ask their questions, and we can hopefully answer a lot of them or some of them right there? We are getting a lot of emails, and I would like to also thank the residents for reporting these things. But perhaps the public hearing would be a nice forum to address that. And then this might be a question for Becca. I'm getting lots of questions about, do we have an official policy on how meetings are conducted? So here's the question. Are some committees, or are we encouraging committees to decide on their own whether they want to meet in person or by Zoom? And how is that all coming together? I don't know if you want to address that now or at the next meeting, but there is some confusion.
Sure, I can speak to that a little bit. To be clear, there is no formal policy right now. It will be a decision for this board to make. I know that the plan is that definitely before April of 2022, right? Because that's, as of right now, when the state mandate will lift yet again, if no permanent measure is taken by the legislature that says that we can continue to meet remotely. So I know that John and I are planning to sit down and develop a few recommendations for this board to consider about setting policy for those other boards and committees. And then there are also, some technical considerations that have to be made in terms of if we were to do some sort of hybrid. There may be some technological upgrades that will need to be made to the meeting rooms that will allow us to continue to broadcast as well as have remote input. So just know that it is coming, and it's something that we're working on. And as soon as we get those recommendations developed, we'll definitely will be before the board to make a request to set the policy.
Thank you. Okay, and one more thing. Do we have a status on the master plan implementation committee? People are very excited to get going with that. And there doesn't seem to be, any meeting planned. Do we have anything in the future planned, or?
I am not aware. I'm not sure what the status is, but I can certainly reach out to Kathy Jubert, who's the town planner, and get an update, and I can get that to the board.
Thank you very much.
In
my report.
In speaking,
Sorry.
Thank you, Julianne. Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say that in speaking to John this past week, I did ask about that, and I think he indicated that they were proceeding with contract with the consultant or something to that effect. There's always some professional consultant that just like we did with the Master Plan Steering Committee, works with the Master Plan Implementation Committee to provide some guidance. And I understand that that's proceeding. I don't know exactly the time frame, but I'm thinking that it should be taking effect fairly soon, and the committee should be getting off the ground.
Do you know the job description of the consultant? Like what?
No, I don't. I mean, I imagine it's very similar to what we had with VHB for the Master Plan Steering Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Scott Rogers.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I guess another reminder that we do have, as I look right now, 23 current vacancies on boards, committees, and commissions. So I'd continue to request anybody who's looking to help us out in town government, please review that on the town website and apply for these open positions. There's been a series of meetings that I've attended, anything from the leadership conference webinar about mental health policing initiatives. That was a very interesting seminar. Meetings of the Conservation Commission, meeting from the MMA on municipal finance and open meeting laws. They did, since last year's session was recorded, this year's session was in a Q&A format. There's a lot of great questions and discussions there. Those items are available from the MMA website for review. We did some work on the interview subcommittee, interviewing candidates for the Cultural Council and Library Board of Trustees. We've got another round of that being planned and look to come forward in our next meeting of the Select Board in making recommendations. Open Space Committee was reviewing properties on Howard and Whitney Streets and making some recommendations on whether to pursue possibilities of purchase or not. So review Open Space Committee if you're interested in those topics. And then finally, as we had a big discussion, Tim presenting the results of the Dni Committee, the National League of Cities under the MMA conducted the third of their seminars on the 15th about racial equity and leadership. And that was done as a Q&A session as well. Very interesting questions coming from, I can't remember the breadth, but it was specific to just Massachusetts cities, towns, and villages. And there's a lot of good discussion on that. And I guess if anybody was interested in those recordings, reach out to me and I can pass those along. Since there were some comments about traffic, I guess, and with the chief here too, if you see an illegal activity, just a reminder to report that to the police. It's a little late if you send it to us in an email. So please, if you see something happening, please, that needs immediate attention, report it to the police. And also remember that we have a website page for common questions and procedural bits. So if you have a general question, look at the traffic section on the town for some of those processes. That ends my report.
Thank you, Scott. Leslie.
Okay, thank you. Scott, DPW Director. How long do you think the work will continue in the center of town?
The work is supposed to be complete in August. I'm not sure if DOT is going to allow them to do the final paving this year or make them come back in the spring or do it in November after a few months. But the work is nearing completion. They're making the tie-ins now to the services, so it's close.
Okay. I mean, they're doing a nice job, you know, and they cone it off, and the officers that are there and so forth, they do a good job on that. Just wasn't sure how long it was going to go. So at least I think the being able to take a left onto 135 is over. Not being able to is over with.
Right.
That was an issue. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Also wanted to mention just in general that the Community Affairs Committee has launched its 2021 summer concert season. So check out their Facebook page. There's a lot of work that goes into scheduling those things and hopefully getting food trucks and all those kind of things to make it a fun time for people. So hopefully we have good weather coming up so that we can enjoy all those events. And I want to thank that committee for all their work. I also want to thank any residents who contribute to the Northboro Food Pantry. And I know that the Friend Fridge has had some issues with the actual refrigerator, warranty issues and so forth and so on. So as of today, I'm not positive what the status of that is, but I know there have been some issues, but I believe people can still drop off non-perishable items too in the kind of a cabinet that's next door to it. As Scott mentioned, he and I both serve on the interview subcommittee. I do want to thank all the residents who come out and interview. They take time to introduce themselves and explain a little bit about themselves so that people in the audience or whoever watch on replay can learn a little bit about them. We see their applications, so we know what we're saying, but people in the audience don't. So it's nice to meet these people and hear a little bit more about them. And I do want to thank all those who apply. Not everyone obviously gets a spot, but we've got some fantastic people who apply, and I want to thank them for that. And also wanted to re-mention what Scott did about the transportation safety page. That's there for a reason, and I hope people use it because, again, that is a wonderful vehicle, so to speak, for people to discuss the problem and for others in town to see it. It's not a private back and forth thing necessarily just between us and our board and that people or group of people. Everyone gets to see what the issue is and if it's been brought up before and whether or not there was a resolution. So again, I have to encourage use of that. And Scott, thank you again for all your work on that. I think that's a really nice addition to our town webpage. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That ends my report.
Thank you, Leslie. For my report, just to briefly comment on a couple of items, because I know these questions have come up. One of them is relating to the enforcement of traffic turning at the distribution centers out on Bartlett Street. I just want to remind people that we did pass a bylaw at town meeting to set the fines for those. However, any bylaws that we pass at town meeting first have to go to the State Attorney General for review and approval. Until that approval is granted, we're not able to apply that. So if people have questions about why fines haven't been issued, it may be in part because we're still awaiting approval of the bylaws before any action can be taken with respect to that. Julianne, to your point about Chapter 90 funding, I guess I would just want people to have the right expectation. The likelihood is that the state will factor that into their budgeting process for 2022. Is that right? No, 2023, I think is the right fiscal year. I wouldn't assume or anticipate that there would be any kind of windfall funding coming from that for us within the current budget year. So until we have more information about that, I don't want people to think that that there's money just waiting to be had in the very near term. And then finally, I just want to make note, former Northboro Police Chief Kenneth Hutchins passed away a couple of weeks ago. Chief Hutchins was a very well-known pillar of the community. The Hutchins family, we certainly extend our condolences to the family. Chief Liver, certainly invite you to speak to that if you would like.
it'd be a pleasure to do that. He worked here for 23 years. He came in 1980. And I won't say he made sweeping changes, but he was a very forward-thinking, innovative leader. I can tell you little things like at the time we had 2 portable radios in the department, and some people came into work really early so they could get one. Within a year or 2 of him being here, we had portable radios for everybody. Our cruisers were all different colors. He unified, made a uniform color for cruisers. Some superficial, changes, changing the image of the police department. But most people, don't know that he's actually from Walpole, Mass. He grew up there, and he started his law enforcement career in Walpole, where he rose to the rank of sergeant, and then he moved out to Utah, went to work for the police department at Brigham Young University, where he found out that he could go to college for free. So as an employee, so he did that. He also worked for sheriff's department, and he was recruited at the time to go to the city of Lakewood, Colorado, which was an unincorporated section of the city, I believe, of Boulder, that had about 100 and some odd thousand people that had no real police department or city infrastructure because it was an expansion of the city, which was unincorporated. So through the Colorado legislature, they basically created a government entity of the city of Lakewood, Colorado in a legislative session. And on such and such a date, it became separate from the county, and they had to have school system, DPW, police, and fire all at the same time go into place. So he was recruited. He was brought in as a lieutenant. He was in command of their homicide unit. He was also the commander of their SWAT team. And a few years after that, he wanted to come back home east. The town had, when Chief Carberry retired, end of 1979-80, the town did a nationwide search for chief. Ken Hutchins wanted to come back home, so he applied for the job, and he ultimately prevailed. And again, he was here for 23 years. He implemented programs that some departments are just starting to do now, back in the early 80s. I say this sometimes to people in a kind of humorous sense, but we'll go to certain trainings and someone will bring up this great new idea that this department's trying, and you get to say, yeah, done that, been there, 20 years ago. So he brought some really advanced thinking to police work, like community policing before it was a term. School resource officer before people knew what school resource officers were. It's just we called it a school liaison officer. I had that position for 8 years. Worked closely with the chief. He created organizations or support networks, people partnership, all sorts of resource materials for parents, help raising your children, and the student safety network up at Algonquin, which still exists in a different version today, where people or students or families that were having difficulties would meet on a regular basis and try to come up with assistance plan of action to help the family. So he did all those sort of things back in the 1980s. Within 9 years of landing here, he had a new station built in 1989. So he was adept at dealing with town administrators and talking at town meeting. He started things like civilian police academies long before they were mainstream around here. As a matter of fact, the first one that we did drew the attention, I believe it was Channel 7, and they enrolled one of the reporters and a cameraman into the program, and they attended all the classes over the 6 or 7 weeks. And once a week at the 6 o'clock news at the end, they would do a 15-minute segment on the academy. That's how forward thinking it was. It was considered to be really unique in the day. And now civilian police academies are commonplace. So he brought a lot of change. In particular, the motto that he brought to the department, which is integrity, intelligence, and initiative. To this day, he was the kind of man that basically just wanted to make you do the right thing for the right reasons all the time, even when no one was looking. So he made you want to excel. He made you want to do well. And like I said, I looked up to the man. I worked for him for 23 years. He promoted me to sergeant. Actually, appointed me to a full-time police officer. Actually, I was part-time in 1980. And in 83, he appointed me full-time to the police department. So I have a lot of respect for the man, and his family are just wonderful people. So he'll be missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Lever. Appreciate those words of support. That will conclude reports. We now move to public comment. As I mentioned, if you're on the Zoom application, you can raise your hand. If you are calling by phone, I don't see anyone calling by phone at the moment. When we bring you in for comment, could you please first state your name and address? And you'll have 3 minutes if you need it to present your comment. As is the case, the board will not typically engage or deliberate or do any decision-making in response to the comment presented. If there's a simple informational question that town staff can answer directly, we will strive to do that. So with that, first person I have up is Amy Paretsky. Hold on, Amy. Sorry, is that...
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Amy. Yes, we can.
Hi, Amy Paretsky, 47 Indian Meadow Drive. I'm also on the planning board, and I was on the master plan and on the implementation committee. So my question actually relates to the master plan, and I heard it discussed a little, but I sent an email at the end of June, and I sent it to you, Jason, and the town planner and the town administrator, but I never heard back. So I figured I'd just call and ask. I just wanted to know, because I was on the master plan and I don't remember them ever talking about hiring consultants. So I wanted to know if you knew who made the decision to hire the consultants. And my other question was the purview, but Julianne already asked that, and you're not sure what the purview is right now. And my third question that has to do with it is the funding, because at the end of the master plan, we were told that we ran out of funding. So I didn't know if the selectmen approved the funding or where the funding came for the consultants. Is there a set amount of hours, or is there a time limit on how long they'll work with the implementation committee? I didn't know
okay.
if the answers,
right,
Jason.
we're going to have to take those. We're going to have to. I don't have those answers off the top of my head. I just had a general conversation with John, and the understanding I had was that there was a consultant being hired, and that the committee would be launching its activity fairly soon once that was complete. I'm not aware of the details of funding relating to that. I think we're just going to have to take those questions and get those to town staff and get the answers back to you, Amy.
Okay, I could just resend the email to the selectmen.
I would, well, yeah, I would copy the town administrator, copy town planner Kathy Joubert, and they should be able to provide the details.
Yeah, I did on June 29th, but I'll resend it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Anyone else for public comment? I don't see any hands raised at the moment. Yes, Rachel Armstrong. Hold on, Rachel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Rachel.
It's Rachel Armstrong, 10 Hemlock Drive. I have a couple of comments. Julianne had mentioned the Chapter 90 surplus, and I understand it may not be the windfall that we expect or are hoping for, but I do think from what I've read that it can fund sidewalks. So I did just want, should we get some funds to consider sidewalks, especially since walkability and pedestrian safety were part of the master plan, especially on the strip of Bartlett that is so dangerous. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the zoning complaints. I think a lot of us are frustrated that we didn't realize that there was no enforcement, that it now needs to go to the Attorney General. We were asked months ago to send in pictures and zoning violations, so I wish that was communicated earlier. You can imagine our frustration with that, since the zoning violation forms were very clear, timestamp, locations, all of that. So I did just want to communicate that for so many of us. And then the last thing is regarding the transportation page. I do appreciate all of the work that's been input. Scott and Chief Live are very responsive to any email, and I am very appreciative of that. But it's not an open dialogue. It's not a group dialogue. It's not a conversation. So you do have Facebook pages for community affairs. You're planning one for diversity and inclusion. It's something you might want to consider for traffic and safety. Since we don't have a traffic and safety committee, it would allow residents to report issues all over town. As Kristen mentioned, it's not just a Bartlett Street issue. And I think it would provide some sort of conversation and a communication. Even if you can't provide answers, at least it allows for a conversation. And that was it.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. I do want to clarify with respect to zoning bylaws. This applies to every zoning bylaw. Whenever it's approved at town meeting, has to go to the state attorney general for review and approval before it takes effect. The effective date carries back to the town meeting action date, but until the attorney general does issue the approval, we can't act on the provisions of that zoning bylaw. So the members of the planning board are quite well aware of that, and it's a standard process, standard procedure for every zoning bylaw. So I just want to be clear that that's not something that's different or new about this particular zoning bylaw. Any other questions from public comment? Seeing none. Okay, thank you all very much. We now move to new business. If I can check my next item is the execution of cemetery deed 1121. Do I have a motion?
I move
Kristen.
the board vote to execute cemetery deed 1121.
Second.
Moved by Kristen Wickstead and seconded by Scott Rogers. That's a very proactive move on your part there, Kristen, to
I wrote it
jump
down.
on the this is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead,
Aye.
Julianne Hirsch,
Aye.
Scott Rogers,
Aye.
Leslie Rattan,
Aye.
and I, Jason Perot, also vote aye. Next, any other business to come before the board? Becca, is there anything more that we need to undertake tonight?
No, nothing more.
Thank you, Becca. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn the July 19th, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting.
Second.
Moved by Julianne Hirsch, seconded by Leslie Rattan. This is a roll call vote. Kristen Wickstead,
Aye.
Julianne Hirsch,
Aye.
Scott Rogers,
Aye.
Leslie Rattan,
Aye.
and I, Jason Perot, vote aye. Carries unanimously. Meeting is concluded. I want to thank all the board members and town staff for their presence here tonight. I appreciate all your help. Good night.
Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.